And with us right now, we got the one, the only Johnny Franchise, aka Johnny Francis is, I guess, what it says on your John Francis is what it says on your birth certificate.
That's
But
right.
your website, Johnny, is johnnyfranchise.com. Great brand. I love it.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, thank you. It's fun, it's memorable, and it's who I am. So it's real.
Absolutely. So you've been in the franchise world for quite some time. When did that
Right.
begin?
Well, I grew up in a franchise company. My dad was a barber, actually cut hair back in the 50s here in Minnesota. And he, together with my mother, franchised barbershops in the 60s, which was
Wow.
way early. At the time, there were restaurants and gas stations and a few other franchise model, not much. And he was an early adopter, used the franchising model to build his barbershop business. And he was a fantastic entrepreneur. My dad, he passed away in 94, but he used franchising as a way to expand and really created opportunity for barbers to become business owners beyond just the one salon, one barbershop model that was pretty prevalent at the time. He created a path for success for franchisees of barbershops and hair salons and really revolutionized the industry. My dad's actually in the Hall of Fame for the barber industry, and for the franchise industry. My mother and father are in there together. They changed the industry. And anyway, I grew up franchising. I thought everything was a franchise when I was a kid. I thought everybody owned 2 or 3 businesses of their own, and I thought everybody worked for themselves except for the people that worked for us. And so I just thought that was the way it was. That's what I grew up with. And of course, as I got older, I realized that no, not everything is a franchise, and certainly not. And as I really got more experience, I realized not everything should be franchised, right? It doesn't work for everything, but it works for a lot of things, a lot of services, a lot of products, a lot of different industries. And so I've been a big fan of franchising really all of my adult life. I've been a franchisor, I've been a franchisee in multiple brands for years, served in the industry association for years, is still very active. And I just love franchising. When it's done really well, everybody wins when it's done properly.
You know, I'm looking at some stats here, and the number of franchise establishments in the United States, I mean, we'll see by the end of this year, obviously, but I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 consecutive years of growth in number of franchise establishments.
Yeah, the franchise industry as a whole, they do some studies, right? They do some analysis, and its economic impact study has been pretty dramatic. It shows what franchising creates and generates in the economy. It's not just the units and the people that work there, but the huge networks of supplier companies, service companies, lawyers, attorneys, marketing companies, all kinds of distribution that happens because of franchising. Lots and lots of employment, lots and lots of jobs. And franchising is generally pretty steady. Even when there's a recession, it maybe doesn't grow quite as fast. But I don't know that franchising goes backwards too often because it's just generally proven success. And like I said, when it's done properly, there's a real collaborative approach to franchising. In a good, healthy brand, there's a lot of culture about help each other win, that competitive mindset, but internally to suspend and really grow and extend the success inside of a brand creates a powerful combination of local owners who really execute well and the franchisor who innovates and constantly is taking those best practices and making that brand even more competitive and more successful, which again creates more competition, which creates new opportunities for all kinds of people. So it's a powerful point of leverage. When it's done well, it really is, creates a lot of success.
Yeah, I think everyone knows that, your typical churn rate of a franchisee is lower than a traditional. And do you know the numbers on that? But taking that into account, and I'll let you share those numbers because I don't know what they are. All I know is I've heard, it's, franchises typically don't turn over as quickly as just a mom and pop's trying their hand at business ownership, which can be dicey. But you think about the economic impact, the franchise model, and that support, that systemic support that is generally baked in, and how that increases the success of the economy as a result of that stability from
Right.
all of those small independent business locations. Franchising is good for the economy.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. And I would tell you that even in this situation with the COVID crisis this year, it's been pretty brutal on a lot of small businesses. Certainly a lot of restaurants have been shut down. A lot of service providers have been shut down. But generally speaking, I see the franchise brands, the franchised models are surviving better. And what's happening is we're seeing consolidation where instead of a unit closing, that owner might sell to another franchisee in the same brand.
Yeah.
So we're seeing the units stay open. There may be fewer owners that own the same number of units, but now we're seeing more franchise acceleration because the people who are getting laid off and let go from their day jobs or their other careers, they still have money. The housing market is still up. The stock market, thank God, came back. So some of the folks still have the ability and they're saying, I've had it, I'm going to go buy my own business. So we're seeing franchise leads and franchise sales and franchise development is actually picked up quite a bit, especially in some segments which people understand is essential or, well, they didn't shut down during the COVID. They actually accelerated and expanded. So we're seeing a fair amount of growth in franchising right now. And I think that when all this shakeout is done, let's say it's another year or two before things kind of stabilize and people get back to the economy in what I would say is a new normal, I think franchising is going to take a big step forward in general because of the success and the support and the scale. And I think the familiarity, even 10 years ago, when I was doing my thing and franchising, people are still like, oh, that's it. People think of franchise, they think of McDonald's or, the huge companies, Now people are realizing that franchising is in a lot of industries. I think it's over 100 industries that use franchising as a method of distribution. So people understand that it's not just these gigantic restaurant brands, that there are all kinds of franchises in all kinds of very attractive and real interesting ways that it's been put to use. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, no doubt. Man, there's a couple things I'm really excited to chat with you about. I definitely want to talk about, adopting a franchise model to any business. I'm going to get to that in just a minute.
Okay.
But before that, I really wanted to get your you got the finger on the pulse of the franchise industry pretty well. And I'm curious what trends you're seeing. And I hope you don't mind sharing both. This sector's kind of, I probably wouldn't jump on this sector right now. So kind of the good and the bad, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, well, there was recently an article just published. I just saw it on LinkedIn like this week about for 2020, these are the brands that are the hot sellers and these are the brands that are the not sellers. And generally speaking, the ones that are hot right now are anything related to cleaning, sanitation, janitorial, especially commercial cleaning, offices, stores, hospitals. Everything needs to be cleaned, and people have a heightened sense of cleanliness and dealing with germs and things of that nature. So that whole category is expanding. We see a lot in home services. Remodeling services are up. Swimming pools are up. Home equipment, things for the home offices and furniture and equipment related to home offices. All that kind of, people are at home, staying home, and they want to be comfortable at home.
Yeah.
So
courier, I would imagine courier services for sure, and delivery.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff is hot. A kind of a demographic trend it's been strong, and I think it's going to stay strong, is what we call senior care at home, where you want your seniors to stay healthy and stay at home. They don't want to go to some other facility or whatever. They want to stay home. So services, there's lots of things that are involved with helping elderly folks stay safe and healthy at home. There's a huge growth, and that's still growing. The bigger challenge there is staffing, right? Getting the right employees, which is another conversation, really for every business. Things that I see
if you were positioned before COVID for that, I can't imagine the number of seniors that were, in some sort of a, community, home or whatever. And, everyone's like, we got to get grandma
Gotta
out
get
of
them
there.
out of there. Get them, get them back, bring them into our house,
Yeah.
and
No kidding.
we'll modify the house and let them
Yep.
live with us. So yeah, there's a fair amount of that. The areas where things have slowed down, clearly the high-end restaurants, the in dining, in-person dining, or whatever, the bigger full-service restaurants, they're seeing some challenges just based on the economy and the reluctance for people to go out and gather in person. I've seen some real carnage, I guess, in that category. Some brands are filing bankruptcies. There's a lot of opportunity. People like to pursue those. But that's a real challenge. And I think, I don't know if that'll ever really come back the way it was, just because of society and culture and people have different kind of priorities, I think, now.
Yeah.
But there's lots of franchises out there, all kinds, and lots of good ones. I mean, I could switch gears and talk about, how to do it, but take your time, do your homework, do a full investigation. I used to, when I was selling franchises, I would say, the more you know about this business or this brand or this opportunity, the better decision you'll make to either do it and join our brand or not do it and know why. So there's a lot of great resources out there for finding and choosing a great franchise. But
yeah, so speaking of which, so I'm on your website, johnnyfranchise.com, and you provide some great resources. Matter of fact, I was just looking, where did that book go? You had a book that you were giving away or selling.
Well,
right?
It's the top 10 tips. My marketing advisory people are telling me, you got to have something valuable, give it away. I'm like,
yeah, that's true.
Easy to do. I don't mind. I love what I do, and I've done it for so long. I love helping people with franchising. So they said, could you create a top tips for franchisees? And I had already done two. I had five tips, and then I had 5 more tips. And they said, no, just make it 10. So, okay, 10. So top 10 tips for franchisees. And these are beyond the obvious, show up and do hard work. These are a little more, I would say, specific to franchising and how to leverage being in a franchise, because franchising has a lot of nuances, and I don't care what industry, what type of franchise, if it's a little one that's regional or if it's a great big national, international brand, there are some things that are unique to being in a franchise that I consider real points of leverage, points of advantage. So those top tips are really for those people who are in a brand and really want to get more. I say, here's how to get more out of your franchisor without writing any checks. So it's that's my top 10 tips. Is I think it's valuable. I get a lot of good feedback from it, and the idea is it opens a few conversations, right? And that's my opportunity to help people figure out what they need to do to keep growing and find success.
Yeah. So now for our friends that are not in a franchise business, they've started their traditional business.
Right.
There's so much you can learn from franchise best practices, getting your business ready to franchise. We kind of go back to some Michael Gerber stuff on that,
right.
But, document and build processes and systems for everything as if, again, you've got that SOP so that you can hand it over to someone and say, listen, here is how you successfully run and up my influence, for example, for me. And so I because we have everything documented so well, and we've thought about, all the threats and the weaknesses and the plans around that. But what are some major areas that you believe that traditional business owners could benefit from that franchise mindset?
Yeah, using a franchise framework, even if you choose not to franchise, clearly there's some strategies that are universal. The first and most important, I would say, is training. Training. A good franchise system offers tremendous training up front when a franchisee is new to that brand, but ongoing for training at different levels. You've got owner training, you've got manager training, and you've got maybe frontline staff training. So developing training systems, training platforms. There's a lot of training technology now that's been converted and really fantastic tools and utility. to make sure that training is delivered and it's effective, and you can actually measure not only how they participate, but how they perform before, during, and after the training. So lots and lots of training systems. I think that's a huge advantage. I guess the other piece is, marketing, the marketing efficiency. In a good franchise brand, there's kind of three layers, again, of marketing. There's like national brand awareness type, if they're big enough and have budgets, they're on television or they sponsor some teams or, sports and things, big national brand marketing. Then there's kind of regional brand. If it's a state or a city or a metropolitan area, you might have a blended market with a lot of owners that run a lot of stores, but they coordinate and have what's called a co-op in that local area. And then there's a local marketing at the unit level, at the neighborhood level, at the community level. So you're going to have that coordinated messaging from national brand through regional or market-wide down to the local level. So
Right.
building that alignment and making sure that those offers and consistency and communication is really effective. Managing those kind of campaigns at those multiple levels and managing the budgets around all of that is very complicated. Let me just tell you, it can be very challenging, but when you do it well, it's powerful. We'll talk about leverage. Again, you've got spending, leveraging spending, leveraging spending. And those kind of techniques that can work well in a franchise brand, I mean, they're expected in a franchise brand. Clearly, those things apply to other chains or national brands that maybe aren't franchised.
Yeah.
But those are some similar things, the training and the marketing. I mean, there's probably a few more I could think of but the franchise, if you're going to franchise, the key to really consider it is this model sustainable as an independent unit? I mean, it has to make sense at the unit level. That franchisee has to be able to operate and manage that business and pay the fees to run that business. I like to say there's an investment to buying the franchise, the startup costs, the initial fees, the equipment, the vehicles, the inventory, all of that. But there's also an investment to own that business, because when a business starts out, it usually takes a little while for that thing to generate cash flow and generate profits. It might take a few months, it might take a few years for that franchisee to replace their income if that's what they're trying to do. So making the initial investment is kind of part one, but being able to sustain that investment and be the owner for the amount of time it takes and sustain that business while you're not really taking the big paychecks. It comes later.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that a franchise, if you're going to franchise your business, make sure you understand the business you're really in. And then ultimately it's a mind shift. You're no longer in let's say it's an ice cream shop that you want to franchise. You're no longer just selling ice cream. Now you're selling franchises of ice cream. And franchising has a different set of skills. There's a lot of relationship, a lot of communication, a lot of different things that happen in franchising that can be very different than the business you came from. So I say when you franchise your business, you're still in that business, but now you're also in the franchising business. And there are a lot of differences that are important to understand if someone wanted to choose that. But it's a great way to go if you're ready for it and you've thought it through. It creates a lot of opportunity, but it's like anything I've learned, and nothing's easy. It takes a lot of time and an awful lot of effort. Franchising is regulated. There's some issues around that with the federal regulations, some state regulations in certain states. You got to be prepared for that. So it's a real commitment. It's not something to say, oh, we're going to franchise. I think you really have to be well informed and well prepared to do it properly.
Yeah, no question. And I know we only have about a minute left, but you have a great program called the Franchise Lifecycle, and a lot of who you serve are people that are franchisees, and
right.
They may not be hitting their goals despite the support that they're getting from their franchisor, and so you help that audience.
Right. Yeah, I've been a franchisee multiple times in multiple brands. I've been a franchisor multiple times in multiple brands. And I've kind of boiled down my experience into what I would say are common denominator, best practices, brand and industry agnostic, just saying, look, there are some consistent things that franchisees can do. I've broken it into 4 phases of life. Startup, kind of the transitional growth year, maturing year, and then what I call the rock star, the
Mm.
superstar. And hopefully you can take a brand, an individual can take their franchise business to those 4 levels. So I created an online training program that's relatively straightforward, no nonsense. It's 4 videos. It's pretty manageable. There's a little bit of coaching time with me because I want to make sure that they get the value and come away with some what to do next is kind of the answer. I like to help people who might be frustrated or challenged or stuck or for whatever reason don't know what happened. It's just not working anymore.
Yeah.
And they really want to get back on track before they fall apart. It's also useful for franchisors. Sometimes their staff and the people who support the franchisees have never been a franchisee, so they don't know what it feels like or what it sounds like or what those franchisees are thinking, the decisions and choices they need to make. And then the franchisor could use it for their franchisees to say, look, here's an outside resource. We think this is valuable. It might help you learn more and apply better what we already have for you. We've already got these systems and conferences and people and resources and technology and programs and all the stuff that a good brand already has. Sometimes the franchisees lose track or lose sight or lose their perspective.
Yeah.
And my goal is to bring it back and make it real and make it valuable, to stick with that brand and get focused on being a good franchisee and really find that success. That's what I want to do, is help people be more successful with the franchise they're in.
They call you Johnny Franchise. You're on the web at johnnyfranchise.com.
That's right.
Johnny, thank you so much for everything. Really, really appreciated chatting with you.
Thank you, Josh. Likewise. Thank you very much.